Should we open the DCs together?
Yeah. Opening the DCs. So Riley,
what's up?
Goosh, this one's for you. VeeCon, we had the pleasure and the experience of going to VeeCon together. And I know that we have hundreds and hundreds of takeaways, maybe not hundreds, but handfuls of takeaways. Let's start day one. What was your, what did you expect going into the event?
Day one, as in like the night we got there?
Just like before we went to the event, what was your expectations like? Like, what did you expect from it based on some of the marketing materials Gary put out, VFriends, NFTs? Like, what were your expectations before we went?
I mean, honestly, I didn't have a ton of expectations because I only started seeing the marketing materials kind of like a week before we went when you were sending them to me. Just because I don't know, I don't know if I was following all of the like VCon accounts or whatever. But I didn't think there was going to be that many people. Like when we pulled up to the meet and greet event, in my head, I don't know why, but in my head it was just much smaller. Like, oh, not everyone's going to be here yet. Like, but it was opposite.
Right.
So we got there and it was like that huge field in front of the stadium and it was like completely full. And I was like, interesting.
And didn't we time it perfectly because it was obviously thunderstorms like an hour before we got there?
Yeah, it was like hailing. Gary like posted on his story. He was like, "What the hell is this?" And it was like hail, but yeah, it was like perfect when we got there. Like the rain had just stopped. It was kind of humid, and then the sun was just going down. We timed everything perfectly because by the time we got there, we were able to get the wine signed because they shut the line down just to the wine holders.
That's right.
I was like, thank God Blake has about 9 bottles in his bag.
But we had like, for those of you listening, the perfect timing in about 10 situations when we were at VeeCon. We were just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And to speak to what Jesse Itzler said, it's so putting yourself in the right position, and then also taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Not just being like at the right place, but like being at the right place because of the right reason or something like that, you know?
Exactly. So to jump back a little bit, how Riley got invited to VeeCon was kind of interesting. Originally, I was planning to have it be my wife and I. Reason being, I bought 2 VFriends years ago in thinking, okay, well, this is an event. There's a utility behind the NFT. I've been to Gary's conferences before. He always provides massive value. And then we got pregnant, so she wasn't feeling super great. And it was perfect timing for Riley to come on the VFriends trip.
Yeah. I think I knew for sure like the week before.
That's right.
Well, yeah, you told me that. And I was like, I actually bought my ticket like 5 minutes after you said it. Like I didn't even wait for like serious confirmation. I was just like, all right, we're going.
We're going.
But yeah, so that was fun.
So opening party, we had the chance to kind of weasel our way into talking, just getting a photo with Gary. And I am a collector of his Empathy Elephant wine that he launched, kind of an exclusive collection. So it was fun to get those bottles signed, and then we ended up going to give a few of those away. And I think that was something totally spur of the moment that I came up with because, you know, I ordered close to 100 bottles of that wine, so I've got plenty of it. And what better way to give back to those that didn't have the ability to meet and greet with him because his line was so long.
Well, the line, like right before they shut it down, the line was through the whole field, wrapped around. I'm just like, I don't even know how many people actually got through, but like the people, like it was like halfway through the line, they said they've been waiting there all day.
Right.
Like this line's not moving fast at all, because like what I realized is when we were like in the event, like inside the stadium for the other days, it seemed like he was moving it a lot quicker. So I feel like that night was kind of like a test run.
Yeah, to see how because his goal was to like meet everybody and take a photo with them, you know, fanboy.
I think he just was shy. I think he probably just like crossed like the 50% mark of like,
right.
I think he met like 4,700 and there was like 7,000 that went or something.
That's crazy. That is wild. Okay, so let's dive into it a little bit. Day one of the conference, woke up early. It was a madhouse to get in there.
This was another example of good timing.
Yes, we had the ability to go in the media line because Riley obviously had a camera with him, and we just acted like we knew what we were doing.
Confidence.
Confidence is key. That first day, I know it was long. What were some of your takeaways from that first day? I think some of the main speakers that I remember and recall, obviously Gary V 1.0, Gary V 2.0,
Yes.
and the real Gary V came out, which was quite comical. But what were some of those takeaways from some speakers that you recall?
Well, if Jesse Itzler was that day, I mean, that was by far my favorite speech, maybe even of the whole event.
Yes.
I didn't really follow Jesse Itzler prior, but I am now, and I like his.
Yeah, Friday was the banging day. We had the so let's start with Friday, and we can kind of talk through our day because I think that there's different takeaways from each speaker that were pretty interesting. So Jim Quick, what was some takeaways from Jim's speech? Do you remember?
Did we listen to it? Did we stay?
Yeah, we stayed.
It was
on
right
that
after
main
him.
stage.
Oh yeah, because
yep. And he talked about memorization and techniques to do that.
Yeah, he was talking about. I honestly don't really. I didn't take honestly a lot away. Even if you would have asked me the day after,
Right.
I didn't take a ton away from him just because I wasn't super interested in it. I think he could have done a better
Intro.
well, intro and just kind of like the whole plot of the of his talking. Like, I didn't want to like participate in a memory game,
Yeah,
So it's
that
like,
early in the morning, first thing.
yeah, it was like, yeah,
it was kind of a lot.
Because I was pumped up from Gary, and then I was like, all right,
What's next?
this guy.
So we had a few breakout sessions, and then we went to the panel called Sweet Talking with Candy Digital with Mike Novogratz, the founder of Galaxy Digital, which is a huge crypto fund. I follow Mike pretty religiously, so I think it was a new face for you.
Yeah, it was.
Michael Rubin, the owners of the 76ers, he also owns Fanatics, and started Candy Digital, which is basically taking Fanatics, which is a clothing and licensing company through Major League Sports, all your memorabilia, all your clothing, all of that stuff. And he started a digital company to do NFTs around events and entertainment within the sporting industry, like a dunk or something turns into an NFT. So kind of a collector's item. What was some things from that talk that were fascinating to you? Obviously, Gary sat on that panel as well.
Well, it's kind of just interesting to see like how connected Gary is with all these people, like just like not random people, but just like Michael Rubin. Like you wouldn't, I don't know if I would correlate them to like, I wouldn't think, oh yeah, Gary and Michael Rubin.
Yeah.
But then they're like, yeah, we started Candy Digital together, all this stuff, and I'm just like, I didn't even know about that when it was happening, because I knew about the All In Challenge when they started it, but I didn't know what they were doing. Like, I don't know if they said they were doing this or not, but.
And that's, I think from that conversation, I remember Candy Digital surfaced from the All In Challenge. And for those of you that don't know what the All In Challenge was, it was early in the pandemic where Gary and a group of wealthy individuals started auctioning off sports-related experiences and items in exchange for raising funds to feed individuals during 2020 when things were starting to crash and go south. So I think what's really fascinating is something for such a good cause brought the three of them together, and now that they've been at the right place at the right time, they are now starting their own company together, which has a lot of potential in my opinion.
Yeah. So what's the premise of Candy Digital? Is it just like an NFT Web3 company pretty much?
Yes. From my understanding, it's a Web3 NFT company that is taking, so let's say like a signed Derek Jeter jersey.
Gotcha. And they're turning into an NFT.
Exactly. They're taking that and either turning that into, and the thing about NFTs that's fascinating to me is two things. One, it's giving you the ability to own a piece of something or something and it's allowing your funds to remain liquid if there's a buyer. I mean, the stock market's a perfect example. It's like you can't sell your stock unless someone's going to buy it.
Yeah.
So,
But like
the
the
premise behind that is there always needs to be a buyer for it, which is kind of that's where the liquidity pool tends to be interesting a little bit when it comes to some of that memorabilia stuff.
how long is it going to take for like the NFT space to get such a large not
Investor
following
pool.
yeah,
Yeah, but
investor
follower,
pool,
yeah.
so it's like there's always a buyer because like when any stocks that I sell, obviously I'm not dealing with huge orders, so it's like anything I go to sell, it sells
Right.
because it's just like
There's always a buyer there.
yeah, so
kinda
it's
thing.
like I feel like until they get to that point in like the Web3 space, it's going to be a little like tricky and like more risky. Because if you own like a $5 million Bored Ape, you're like, is someone going to buy this for 10 million or,
Right.
you know, more so of like being confident down the road because there's
About
more people.
exactly. I think that's the one thing that obviously the market is trying to transition into from an NFT space is that the buyer pool. It's super interesting to hear that, what is it? OpenSea has something like 3 million monthly active users. And how many of those people are actually buying, or are they just searching for things? Yada, yada, yada. So when it comes to what the NFT space is, like, what is the NFT space to you? Like, how do you see?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think, well, right when Gary introduced VFriends was kind of when I was just learning what the heck it all was. Um, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not like diving more into it because at the time I was just like, what is it? And I
Right.
didn't take the time to learn about it because I was doing a lot of trading with stocks and then I was getting into crypto. But then I was like, there's so much to the NFT space. I was like, oh my gosh, this
Because
is a
crypto is like
whole
a whole
other.
nother or like NFTs are a whole nother layer of crypto.
Well, yeah, like crypto is
Like if
just
you don't understand crypto, you definitely don't understand NFTs.
yeah, exactly. Crypto's like the base layer. You need to use and know crypto to use and interact with NFTs,
Right.
you know. But I mean, in my mind, when I think about it, and obviously going to VCon was like a really big eye opener to like see all of these large um, influencers and like public figures that are like, yeah, we're all in Web3 NFTs, and I'm just like, what? Like, it's kind of crazy just that everyone has an NFT project, and I'm just like, I didn't even think, like, who was it? Ashton Kutcher's wife.
Oh, Mila Kunis.
Mila
Yeah.
Kunis, like, and she has that NFT project, and I'm just like, it's some of the people that are just you're just like would never ever think would be a part of a project,
I
but it's
think
like,
that's it's an interesting observation. I think that at least 40% of the projects, or maybe more than that, it's a money grab because there's such this.
I would say like 90%
Yeah, I think
probably.
90% is good. And even like some of the projects that were announced or released at VCon 2 are, I'm not saying they're going to zero, but what I'm saying is where's the utility and the value, and it comes down to everything in life. It's like, why do I buy the new iPhone every year? Well, because I use it. The camera's better, the processor's faster. It allows me to be more efficient in my daily life. So
Yeah.
where, obviously there's a place for collectors and collectors items in gaming and that type of avatar metaverse type lifestyle. But for the everyday consumer, I mean, this is why it took 15 years for us to adopt using a freaking smartphone. Like
Yeah.
people that were stuck in the business world use Blackberries forever, and I think that with crypto being kind of so far out there with the NFT space, it's going to take many years to adopt it from the everyday consumer that we don't know we're using NFTs and blockchain.
Like the people that aren't familiar with it.
Yes. So I don't think it will become mainstream until we don't know we're using it.
Well, it's gonna. I mean, I wasn't around, but I feel like it's gonna be a little bit like the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of the stigma around it is kind of like
It's
this
the
is
next layer of the
ridiculous,
internet,
whatever.
right?
But it's like, is it ridiculous? because I mean, you see all these successful people that are diving into these
Participating.
projects, and it's like, are they onto something early on?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're gonna be set up so well. Like that's when I was talking to you. I was like, or you, we were just both going back. Like we should do the first commercial real estate NFT, and how does that work? Because it's like if we are the first ones in it, like that could be good because we'll be have a good foundation. And if it's a fad, then we learned our lesson. But like,
And that's so interesting you say that, because since the conference, I think about it every day, how I can incorporate NFTs into commercial real estate. And yes, there's a lot of legal, logistical, I wouldn't say issues, but things that you have to navigate through. In the way that I look at it I look at two things when it comes to how can commercial real estate incorporate NFTs into, I guess, like the industry.
yeah,
And one being basically you're developing a syndication partnership.
yeah,
So a lot of commercial real estate properties are purchased by not only one buyer, but maybe a bank and a handful of buyers. Maybe there's 5 or 6 buyers, sometimes 2, sometimes 1. The thing that NFT does for the commercial real estate space in that situation is, like I said earlier, it becomes a lot more liquid. And when I say more liquid, that means you have access to your funds, hopefully quicker than the traditional commercial real estate purchase and sale. Yes, there's a lot of logistics, like I mentioned, that you will go through in a commercial real estate transaction. But I think NFTs allow that process to go a lot more smoothly, because a lot of entitlements, a lot of history on the property, title, you've got a clear title before you close in most circumstances. And so with the blockchain and the the ledger that is verified and immutable gives you the ability to track something back to the day that it was first created. Now, it's going to take a long time for us to adopt that and put it all on the blockchain, but once we start to make progress on that, it can happen. So the number one thing, like I said, it's going to create liquidity in the space, and I hope that it has that ability to do that. And the second thing is, like what I was just mentioning, we're going to have the ability to track properties back from like conception. So if we're going to go buy a parking lot, which I'm looking out the window right now, and turn that into a 17-story high rise, mixed use, retail on the bottom, apartments or condos on the top, we can start and go back on that land, let's say 50 years, and put that on the blockchain. And what that would do for us is, in the future, let's say we develop the building, we run into some issues in the dirt, it gets recorded on the blockchain versus just with the title company. So if we ever go to sell that building in 10 years, it's verifying that everything was completed and done in an orderly fashion that allows any new buyer to acquire that property at a quicker pace and feel comfortable about it. Because right now, a lot of the lag time, in a commercial real estate transaction, you close in the earliest in commercial real estate, it's usually 60 days. Stuff doesn't happen a lot quicker than that unless it's specifically a cash buyer. But for most circumstances, it's 60 days. But if any buyer or lender is coming in to purchase that property and they need to underwrite it, and they have this immutable blockchain history of what's gone on the property, it's going to make them a lot more comfortable when processing these transactions. So what happens when our typical transaction goes from 30, 60 days to 5? Like, how does that impact the industry? And that's what excites me, is because it makes commercial real estate properties more, it gives them the ability to be more liquid. Like I said, disclaimer here, there's a lot of legal compliance that we got to figure out with this. But it would be really cool to start a NFT project around commercial real estate. Let's say we've got 1,000 tokens at $1,000 each. That gives you, that's $100,000. That's probably not enough, but 1,000 tokens at $10,000 each, and you go buy, a $10 million or a $5 million single tenant triple net lease investment, where you're rewarded dividends in ETH or Bitcoin or whatever that is, and you can trade that token for its value if it appreciates, depreciates, I don't know. It's complex, and I kind of went on a rant there, but I'm very fascinated to see how it will impact the commercial real estate industry. And I think that out of all industries that NFTs can impact, it's commercial real estate and the music industry because of the royalties in the music industry. They get missed all the time, and the ability to sell something and keep track of that. You know, I know Riley and I are organization freaks. And if we had the ability to go 40 years into the future and we're not using this technology that we have presented to us today, those that are going to be wavelengths ahead.
There's so many things that I thought about there. It's like, all right, people going to be swing trading commercial like, properties. Like, if it's 5 days, like, what does that look like? And also, one thing is like, all right, so if a party goes in and buys it, and then everyone's like trading it, like obviously there's got to be like, you know, like the Gardner Company, a sole owner and manager.
So I would say like the creator would retain 25% of the investment as like a sole member manager.
Yeah, and then they'll get royalties every time it's traded.
Exactly, because they were the creators of it originally.
So that's a second cash flow to just the rent.
That's a good
like
idea.
Income. That'd be even more of like an incentive to own a property. Because like now it's like already a no-brainer, like work to own cash flow.
Exactly.
It's like work to own 2 cash flows with 1 building.
And it's one of those things too where, yeah, NFTs are just, people view them as a picture on the internet, a JPEG, copy, click, save. But what people don't realize is it's basically just a line of code. Yeah. Like if you look up NFTs on the Ledger system, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros and numbers.
Isn't that crazy?
And it creates a picture. I mean, you look at video games, basically it's written code. Like I don't process how that like creates itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
so sometimes you don't have to always,
it's just the technology behind it.
You don't have to always understand things or get things, but the application of the use case of the efficiencies of life.
Yeah, so then that makes me think with commercial real estate and NFTs, does that eliminate the accredited investor?
Oh man, that's a whole
label that like,
worms.
Because like, you know, to participate, is it in any syndication or most syndications you have to be accredited investor?
That's a great question. I don't know all the legalities and the rules around accredited investor stuff.
It might be like a monetary value of how much you're putting in or how much the project's worth. Or something.
There's something in that. I know some research is like you have to have a net worth over like $1 million or something like that to be accredited, and then you have to file something and show that you are. I mean, the government has their hands in everybody's pocket to an extent.
So then it's like, how is it like go from that in a syndication deal to like some degens day trading a commercial property value or whatever?
I think that on that question, I think it all circles back to regulation within the crypto space that I would hope that the government is currently working towards solving that problem. Problem is that most of it is untrackable to the extent of who owns what on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Because it is decentralized and you can hide if you want to hide and you can be out there if you want to be out there. You know, like I've always had the tip of don't tell people how much Bitcoin you have or how much Ethereum you have, or if you have a Bored Ape, don't brag about it. You know, because it can easily be.
Well, like Seth Green got his stolen.
I know.
Was it Seth Green?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you get that? So basically, how he got it stolen is he was tweeting about it all the time. Obviously, he had it on OpenSea, not on OpenSea. It was actually on his MetaMask wallet or in his MetaMask wallet, which is once again an exchange like Coinbase. And his Twitter got hacked, and I believe that maybe his Twitter didn't get hacked.
That was Beeple.
Yeah, that was Beeple. Beeple. He's kind of weird.
Yeah, he's
crazy.
Weirdo. But yeah, so it's just like I think a big concept over the weekend at VeeCon was, oh, it's so rad, it's decentralized, no government, and then they steal your $5 million ape, and it's like, help please, and there's no help.
Right.
So it's like, where's the healthy balance of like
that
regulation?
Even dives into the whole financial industry. It's like, really, why do we give banks our money? It's because there's trust there.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
like a
and
collateral in a way.
I've really processed this recently. FDIC insurance is most banks up to 250 grand. But if you have, let's say, $500,000 in the bank, and the bank were to go under, I don't know if you have the ability to access anything over 250 if the bank
Yeah.
were to go away.
Yeah.
So
I don't have much experience with that,
yeah,
but
I mean, years ago, things like this happened where, you know, you'd go to the teller and you'd have to negotiate to pull out of your savings account because the bank didn't have any cash on hand. And I'm like,
crazy.
what the hell? So when it comes to decentralization in crypto, I think it's great. And I think the winners in this from a company standpoint, you know, Coinbase obviously is leading the charge big time, but it's like, where do you store it? And it's storing your private keys to access the blockchain that shows how many Bitcoins you have. You don't actually own these coins, or they're not on your ledger. They're actually on the blockchain system. And this is where a lot of people get confused is they think, oh, I own a few Bitcoins. You know, is it on Coinbase? Is it on an external, you know, let's say you put it on your Trezor and you hide it in your safe. Your Bitcoins aren't on that Trezor.
yeah.
The private keys are what allows you access to that shows that you
It's like an
own
ownership
that.
match
Yes.
kind of thing.
And something I read recently that's really interesting is the more times that the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain is copied, the safer it gets. So
That's
like,
crazy.
I think MIT spent like, I want to say it was like $6 to $7 million to house a copy of the Bitcoin blockchain and to carry it on going forward.
That's crazy.
So it's like to keep the computing power in the record system. I mean, they needed $6 to $7 million worth of servers to store all of those transactional lines of code. And that just blows my brain because it's like every time that the code is copied, it makes it safer and safer and safer and safer. So people are like, oh, it hasn't been hacked. Bitcoin can't get hacked. And I guarantee it's never going to get hacked because it keeps just getting safer and safer and safer. The more transactions that go through
to the line of code.
Exactly. And there's more people that are spending the money to be that proof of having the code. So, and I don't know, there's something like 2,500 copies of it now that all these companies have spent millions of dollars to have like the ledger system downloaded somewhere, which...
And it's crazy to think now, like how many actual computers it takes and the storage and the space. But then, like, if we fast forward 10 years, it's probably gonna be like so condensed because, like,
right?
Because I have a 2
Storage
terabyte
space
hard
is getting
drive.
bigger.
It's this big and this thin. But I mean, shoot, even like 10 years ago, it was 9 times the size of that. So it's like,
I know, it is crazy.
how's the technology going to keep up with that? Because, like, I mean, it's like, can it keep getting better and better and better? Like, when's the point to where it's like
Exponential, dude.
hard to like?
It's exponential.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then you think of like the people like making the microchips. It's like you look at how little these things are, and I was like, okay, how much does all this crap fit on this thing? Like it just, once again, something that doesn't make sense that you just got to keep using and abusing.
Yep. You know? Because then one day it's gonna be like you said, we're gonna be using it every day, but we don't know it. Would notice.
Right. And think of this, and I want to jump back to that because this is fascinating to me. So think of when credit cards came online, like when we went from, let's say, obviously it was cash, debit cards, and then this credit feature surfaced in the financial industry. Okay, well, yeah, we can borrow other people's money and then we pay them back. But when we started using credit cards, like that's kind of interesting to me because it's like the POS system is talking to the bank. The bank says, yep, approved. And then that POS system talks to the other POS system saying, okay, yeah, charge the amount. You know, wallets talking to wallets, but the intermediary is Visa, MasterCard, Chase.
The ones lending
on the money.
Yeah.
So what's fascinating to me is this next layer. Okay, we've just gotten to the point where Apple Wallets came out, 6-7 years ago?
I don't know.
And from day one,
I just started using it last year.
I was like, this is the future.
Yeah.
But once again, here's another show and track record of it takes time. Now, 99% of POS systems in the US allow Apple Pay, you know, and you can store your cards there. I store my cards there because it's just efficient for me. I don't carry a big old fat wallet anymore full of credit cards. But what this speaks to is NFT and Bitcoin. It's going to take time.
The adoption of it.
And it's going to take enough time for us to not even realize we're using it. You know, it's I don't carry cash anymore, and a handful of people still do, but it's slow. Everything's so slow, and it's finding the right technology, building the right projects, providing the value, which I think Gary and his brothers have done. With their NFT projects, is there's actually a utility case for it. So, do you want to share a little bit about what you see in the NFT space, in the utility aspect versus just a picture of a monkey?
Let's just say, just because I don't know, let's just say there's like no utility. I feel like the Bored Apes, the CryptoPunks, like what's the utility behind that? I don't know. There might be, but I feel like NFTs really got just like the first publicity of the NFTs was like a negative connotation because it was just hype.
Right.
And it was just like, this is so cool. Like all these like rich 20-year-olds that are day trading and they're like buying these NFTs and like trading them. Like I just made $500,000 yesterday. Right. And then it's like, okay, but you zoom out in a month and after a month of doing that and it's like not cool or the thing anymore, like what's still backing it and what's making it valuable. So yeah, I feel like, and like you said, there's so many projects that are just cash grabs, regardless of the utility or not. Some of them are just cash grabs. Mm-hmm. But it's like, all right, well, first step, just have utility, at least, right? And then it's like,
whether the utility is in income producing,
yeah,
for example, real estate in the NFT space, or provide or like Fly Fish Club, an experience. You know, people spend money on experiences, and you look at, you know, people pay hundreds and thousands of dollars on Louis V bags. Like, okay, it's probably made for like $15, but guess what? It creates a user experience, and they find value in that. Yeah. And that's where I think knowing the consumer is the ultimate piece. Obviously, Gary was very successful at VeeFriends because of his community.
Yeah.
You know, but what people don't realize is the utility of what that is. You know, it's a conference for 3 years, and I think I originally paid, I want to say it was like $3,500 for his NFT. And just that one conference that I received was worth that. And I've got 2 more years plus, you know, and the value of it's obviously gone through the roof. But just from like an initial investment standpoint, it's like, yeah, I'd probably pay $2,000 for that conference. Yeah. In all honesty.
I mean, regardless of, like you said, regardless of the monetary gain or loss, you have to look outside of that, what it's giving you.
Right.
Right. So like,
it's like owning a share of Apple. It doesn't do much for you. You've got a 3% dividend or something like that on annualized. But
yeah, so I think that's where Gary really did well, because I mean, that's just kind of how Gary works. He's like, you know, takes what everyone's doing and just makes it better, and like actually makes it
more valuable.
Yeah, because I mean, just even thinking like, oh, the reason we went to VeeCon was because of an NFT, right? Like, so that was just so cool, and everything that he was able to do, I don't know, it was like a great event.
I think the most eye-opening thing to me was just how early the space is, and putting myself in a situation I wouldn't plan to. Like, my expectation going there was much lower than what I was delivered with, because I was kind of like, oh, this might be, like, no disrespect, a nerd conference, you know, a lot of video game, because NFTs are tightly close with video games because of that line of code and visual description of what it is.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot closer to the video game industry than it is to like the general population. So I think my expectations of what I was going there for changed drastically when I came out of it. You know, it's kind of interesting.
Well, you were like, I'm going to go network and like talk to a bunch of people. But like, yes, you talk to people, but it's not like you're getting any business relationship or anything like that out of it.
Yeah, from some of the networking. That was the interesting part.
And I mean, there was a fair share of like nerds, like no offense to that word or term, but just like, you know, what that is. And then it's like, but there was also so many like high class, wealthy people that like owned these NFTs. And it's just like, it was just interesting to see, like, the dude I sat next to the first day was like developing a currency for a new country, and I'm just like, what are these?
You're like, what is that? Like, what brought you here?
Yeah, and then there's just like, you know, some 19-year-old that made like 300K because he started NFTs last year, and he's just like got glasses and like
Yeah,
just
that's
some
so
scrawny
funny.
kid. But like there's just it was like a very wide variety, which was also kind of cool because I feel like it got us out of our comfort zones a little bit
Yeah,
too.
and that's what it's all about, is
Yeah,
doing stuff that's out of your comfort zone.
and everyone's very not similar, but like Gary's community is very mergeable. Like even though we're all different, we all have one thing in common,
Right.
right?
And that was cool.
And like everyone was walking around with a camera, and that also made me think. I was like, all right, everyone's walking around with a camera. How do we do it better? So that was like it was like a good pusher motivator for me
Hmm.
too, because like, all right, these people are making videos too, documenting, but we're just gonna do it better. So
I love how that sparked ideas in you to like grow and continue on your journey as a videographer slash director of a marketing company.
yes, yeah, it was just cool to see because like there's a lot of stigma around content creators and all that stuff and like oh it's
One-hit wonders.
influencers, yeah, and so it's like I mean in my head like I tell you all the time I'm like I'm not making my millions from video,
Right.
right, but like it's gonna be my vehicle to get me to the places I need to go, the people I need to know. Yeah, there's a healthy relationship with being a content creator and doing it correctly. And then there's like, try to be flashy and an influencer and like there's different things around that which is kind of interesting to me. Like I mean, there's a couple people that just off the top of my head, I wouldn't want to like
Go down that path.
go down that path and or associate like they're a content creator and I'm a content creator. I'd be like, "No, we're different." Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's a stigma with it, and I think through the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years, you have had the ability to be a freelancer if you're in that industry and make some pretty good money. Guess what? Things are changing.
Well, so that's the thing too. When I started video, there was probably 3 videographers that I knew of and that were actually working. Like in not three, okay, but
Handful.
not that
Yeah,
many,
Boise's a small town.
right? Not that many. Now you look at it, and I have high schoolers left and right DMing me and asking me,
How do I
I'm
do
getting
this?
into
What do I do
video.
that?
Like, what do you think? And like that just wasn't a thing when I started. So it's just kind of it's cool, but it's also like I'm glad that I'm rooted and like because there's not I mean like I don't see competition in my opinion because it's like if someone chooses to work with them, there's a reason for that and I need to fix something. There's this it's so saturated now.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just like NFT
And the
projects.
cream, the good will rise to the top.
Yeah, just like the NFT projects. The market downturn is great because it's going to filter it out.
Right.
And then it's also like all right, well, whatever videographer is still here in 5 years, it filtered out all the ones that weren't willing to work hard enough or were just there for the name, content creator, like whatever. So that's just kind of interesting. That was kind of a side tangent, but
No, it's good though because it all ties into how you got started in the industry and how the opportunity presented itself to go to VCon.
yeah. Well, just to summarize in like 2 sentences, like overall, VCon was like a great experience, and like those 3 days went by quick in a good way. Like I wasn't like, ugh, all right, time to go home. But when we like went to the airport the next day, I was like, all right, well, that was perfect. Like I'm ready to get back to work, go home, do our normal routine.
Implementation.
Yeah, but it was like it was a healthy reset and like 10 out of 10 experience.
Yes, and we will be going back next year.
Yes. I wonder if where it'll be. Yeah. Oh, he's probably
Taking
probably
4 days
already.
off though right now, so hanging out with Mona.
Oh no. Yeah. All right, that was good.